I got this email in from JR. Kim, you say you are a progressive, but you often seem to take right-wing talking points and only seem to criticize the Democratic Party. Are we witnessing a Dave Rubin-style grift?
Good question, Kim. Welcome to Socialism for All. This file is being recorded for the March 2021 edition of Socialism for All. And in this video, we're going to be looking at socdem gang member Kim Iversen. She popped up on YouTube a couple of years ago and is active within the Kyle Kulinski, Humanist Report, Tim Black kind of orbit of left populists. And what is this person all about? We had a request from a viewer to do an analysis. In fact, I had already had an interest in this because I had stumbled onto an interview between her and Graham Elwood, a year or so ago. And I was floored by the admissions that she made in here about how cynical a grift she was actually running, how little she knew about left politics. It was absolutely stunning. She came out of kind of nowhere and has like 250,000 subscribers. So wish I had 250,000 subscribers, could be spreading Marxism instead of the poisonous crap that she is spewing. Let's get into this, first of all, with a look at that Graham Elwood interview.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. Here I have a very special guest, host of the Kim Iversen Show. Kim Iversen, how you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm great.
So I wanted to get, because you, I love talking to like indie media progressives, and you just started doing your show like 2 months ago.
Yeah, 2 months ago. Just the 11th was the two-month anniversary.
And your show's blown up in a short amount of time, which I think is fantastic. And so why don't you tell us, because you've worked in broadcasting for a long time, like what got you to the place of deciding to start talking about independent media and just basically going for the truth?
Well, it wasn't an easy decision, that's for sure. So yeah, I came out of radio. I was a radio talk show host pretty much, well, since I graduated from college. I got into radio broadcasting, moved all around the country. So I started off in Sacramento, went to New York, went to Indiana and Illinois and Texas, and the life of a media broadcaster. That's the way it works. You know, you're just picking up call signs. I decided, my show actually had done really well. I was fortunate in my radio career to, for one, as a female, to lead my own show, which was very rare in radio. It's still very dominated by men. And so I was really lucky. About 11 years ago, I got a break to host my very own show. That show ended up going national, and it was a nationally syndicated show that was on in 25 different cities across the country. So like Denver, Indianapolis, Austin, Texas, Nashville. So it was, and then I moved to another company. I went to iHeart, and I was with them for a while. And that show was also a syndicated show that was in 25 different cities like Chicago and Philly. And so,
now, was this were these talk shows, were you talking news, or what was the content basically that you were talking about?
No. Yeah, good question. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. I was talking about sex and relationships, to be honest with you. So what happened was I was in music radio. So I was doing morning shows on music, kind of like top 40. We call them hot AC stations. So these are these are stations that play like John Mayer and Taylor Swift, right? So, and Rihanna and Lady Gaga, but you're getting a little bit of the softer stuff and not so much of the total pop stuff. So I was doing morning shows on these hot AC stations, and then I moved to nights on the hot AC station. So I was on these music stations, but actually the music stations shut down the music at night and just let me do a talk show. And what I did was very similar to, if you're familiar with Loveline.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Total side note, but Loveline, for anyone familiar with that, I thought it was Love Lines, plural, but maybe it's Loveline. Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla, complete right-wing scumbags. Adam Carolla makes a point of going around and doing reactionary humor wherever he can. And also Dr. Drew was a COVID denier who got COVID. He also got in trouble for failing to disclose financial interest. I believe he was paid over $100,000 by the makers of the antidepressant Wellbutrin to plug Wellbutrin on his show to callers seeking advice over the radio. Anyway, total side note, back to Kim.
With like Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla, that's when it was at the height of it. And they switched various different hosts out. You know, Adam left and other guys stepped in, and Drew Pinsky was always there. And my show was very much like Loveline, but for women. So women would call in, men and women actually would all call into the show, and they would ask me for relationship advice. And I was just known. I mean, I'm not a relationship expert. At this point, that's debatable because I spent so much of my career studying it and reading books and talking to experts that experts towards the end were like, well, you're an expert. And I'm like, I guess, just because I've talked to thousands of people about their relationship problems. So I was just really giving people relationship advice and talking a lot about news.
Another side note, that in fact does not make one an expert capable of giving advice. In the mental health field, being able to do counseling and giving advice is actually pretty tightly regulated as far as what you need to study and the ethics that you need to follow, et cetera, to be able to give that kind of advice. So no, this is a layperson who has read books, apparently, giving advice that they're not really qualified to give compared to someone who has actually gone through the formal training for that. But here we see perhaps the beginning of a pattern of talking about things that Kim isn't necessarily that well versed in.
Doing news, but news that related to women. So news topics that were, if they related to women's lives in some way, then I would talk about that, but nothing political ever. And then I just kind of got sick of it. Honestly,
Interesting that Kim conceives of women's issues as not political. I don't know if she means specifically electoral politics, but already we see kind of a narrow view of the scope of what is political and social issues, etc. That struck me.
I was doing that type of talk for 10 years, and I felt like, where am I going with this? I mean, am I going to keep being this relationship and sex talk person for, and I would show up to work and I would yak my producer's ears off about politics, and I wouldn't shut up about politics. And then they're like, okay, we're going live now. So 3, 2, 1, stop talking politics, And I'd have to switch gears and, go into okay, tell me all your problems. And I was known as the person who just told you like it was. So you'd call into my show and I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. I was just your friend that was going to be telling you exactly what's up with your what your friends are thinking, but they're not saying because they want to keep your friendship. My job was to say what everyone's thinking.
So I think her concept there, my job is to say what everyone is thinking, her concept of what she's doing, it's a very populist framing, in fact, as we start to segue over into her current career as a, quote, left-wing populist. Populism, what is it? It's been irrelevant for most of the 20th century since socialism took off, since proletarianization kicked off. Populism has been much more of a petty bourgeois, anti-proletarian ideology. But this whole concept of just saying what's on everybody's minds, whether it's correct or not, whether it's based in any kind of a scientific outlook, it's just popular opinion, full of all the ignorance and prejudices that popular opinion is until people get educated. Okay? I mean, I've had my share of that, but you get educated, you become a socialist, and you adopt better positions. But this is this kind of, well, we'll hear in a minute how she's doing it for business. This is her business, is talking. And she's not an activist. She's not an expert. Her business is just to talk.
So, I just got sick of it. And I realized I really do need to go and talk about something I'm passionate about, which would be politics and news. I did start off, I should say, in my radio career doing news. Mm-hmm. So that was what I was originally doing. And then I thought it was really boring and I left and I thought music radio would be more fun. And it was. I mean, it was. You just like interview rock stars all the time and go to tons of concerts and, talk about sex and relationships. It was a great life. But yeah, so I left 2 years ago and to be honest with you, I didn't start thinking about independent media. Really, I knew digital was the future for sure. And I was hesitant to go back into regular old broadcasting because I don't know how long that's going to last. Even now, I watch CNN and MSNBC. I'm like, you guys are dinosaurs. You're on your way out, right? But in all honesty, I wasn't a progressive at that time.
So here we go, circling closer and closer to the point and the truth here, which is she wasn't very progressive, was just looking to, maintain a broadcasting career of some type, saying what people want to hear. Are you starting to get the picture? And also all the constant attacks that people like Kyle Kalinske and others in the socdem gang make on the dinosaurs of CNN and MSNBC, etc. It's like they're doing the same thing, but in a new form that they just see as more commercially viable. And they're kind of thumbing their nose at these legacy boomer media or whatever. It's not necessarily that they're doing better content necessarily, but it's more relevant and it's about capturing that audience. It's not necessarily about educating people, but just saying a little bit more of what people want to hear and keeping a more, air quotes, successful in a capitalist, just purely economical sense, business going. Well, let's see how else she indicts herself here.
I also wasn't really a mainstream Democrat. I didn't know. I was just your average person who cared, but who didn't really know the difference really between a progressive or a mainstream Dem or a neoliberal or anything, right? Like I was like anybody who had a life, who was very busy, who would just turn on mainstream news or go on to mainstream websites. And I was just consuming what was thrown at me, and I'd have an opinion on it like anybody and everybody on Twitter, and that's where I was at. Now, my dad, on the other hand, is a hardcore progressive, and he has been since the dawn of time, basically. My dad was a hippie that protested the Vietnam War. He married my mom, who was a Vietnamese refugee. Sometimes I wonder if the reason he did that was like to just like help. I don't know, because they weren't very well matched. They didn't speak the same language anyway. Sorry, Dad. Sorry. He's going to see this. Sorry. My dad is a really big progressive. So when I would call him and talk to him on the phone, he would like go on and on and on about the truth of what's going on and Hillary Clinton's terrible. And, he would just really, and my dad is like a really quiet artist guy and really didn't ever get fired up about anything. But boy, did he get fired up during the 2016 election. I mean, he was like, Bernie was cheated and Hillary Clinton's the devil and I'm never voting for her. And I just was like your average person who was like, what? But Trump is way worse.
So we're talking about 2016. She still didn't have a clue. Yet a couple years later, she has 250,000 subscribers. Meanwhile, we've got about 2,000 over here, but growing. I mean, I feel like at this point you can pretty much turn off the video, but it actually gets interesting as far as she details exactly how cynical setting up her air quotes progressive channel was. I think we're about to get into that.
Right. It is slow and people will be resistant, of course, because people don't like change and they don't like to hear things that they're not used to hearing. And they start to think that it's, crazy talk. And I even said things to my dad like, you're wearing your tinfoil hat again. Like, here you go, But he slowly did convert me. And the way he did it was, he just kept talking about it. And then I ultimately did my own research. I ultimately was like, oh, right. Okay. Because my dad cares about this so much, I need to look into this and really see what's going on, and we'll see. And a lot of it in the beginning, I think I was looking into it to try to prove them wrong a little bit. But also, I decided I was going to go into I didn't know what I was going to do. I left my radio show and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I want to talk politics, but I didn't know where I fit in. And so
So we're coming up on it now, but she's laying it down of as late as 2016, she's doing research trying to prove her dad wrong about Bernie getting, screwed or whatever in that primary, which was like patently obvious to everyone. She's at that level of political naivete, yet she leaves her show. She wants to go into politics, yet she doesn't understand politics and doesn't even know where she stands politically. Now, everybody makes this journey of some type in their life, but do you do it? I mean, she could have done a lot of different things at this point. Do you go on the mic and mislead tons and tons of people? That's the question. Is at what point is it responsible for you to go out there and say, hey, I am knowledgeable about politics. You will learn something from this. I'm sure she would just say, oh, well, this is just entertainment or blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but people need education, and especially about something as serious as politics. Don't do it if you don't know what you're doing, because it honestly makes it harder for the rest of us to fight against the noise and just to compete. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, and time that people spend watching your low-quality garbage is time that they're not able to spend watching something else. You can only watch one thing at a time, maybe two if you're really good at controlling your attention span. That's what I'm saying, is just get out of the way if you don't know what you're talking about, because you're dragging down the level of discourse and you're actually misinforming people.
What I needed to do was kind of take a step back. I tried doing a digital show that no one watched. So I've had a lot of success these 2 months, but the first time I tried, nobody cared. I had like 10 people watching a video, all friends and family. And I was still trying to get my bearings together. And when I was doing this show that I first started, I was parroting the mainstream lines, and I didn't even believe it myself. I mean, I sat there and I would like try to get into the outrage and, the outrage machine about whatever the outrages of the day. And I would try to do a video on it. And I honestly would be like, I don't even believe this. Like,
I guess congrats for not doing it eventually, but why did you start out doing something like that you didn't believe in? I mean, why do it? Why didn't that sense that she's describing come up earlier in the research process when she was setting this up? Was it just all about trying to stay relevant and getting an audience, etc.? I think it was. I'm not passionate about this. My audience is going to call bullshit right away because they know that I tell it like it is, and they can tell when I'm lying. Not that I was lying, but I just really was trying to put shows together, and then I would try to put content out there, and I'd be like, I don't know, like I'm kind of, and then I wondered, I was like, maybe I'm a right winger. Like I had. Oh my God. You're doing a political show. You have no idea what your politics are. I mean, have you thought about going into a different line of work? Just a thought.
These moments where I was like, because I don't agree with this. Like, what's going on? Like, am I a right winger and I don't even know? I was going through an existential crisis. I really was. So my solution was to just remain silent for a long time, was to just shut down. And everybody would be around me saying, well, you got to get your career back. You've got to be making videos. You got to be doing this. And I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. So I'm not going to talk until I know what to talk about, because I don't know where I belong anymore. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I know I don't really agree with this left-wing narrative and this like social justice outrage all the time. It's like pick something new every day, and that's what they're going to be mad about. And then
what? I'm honestly surprised that she did this interview. Like, she's being incredibly honest about some incredibly unflattering things that she's not really saying like, Oh, and then I grew out of that because it was completely wrong. And I mean, that sounds like a position she still holds. Like she's justifying that the left-wing outrage machine, what did she even say? That they just pick something new every day? I'm going to need some explanation on that one. Wow. Okay.
You know, my dad was saying things to me and I was like, I don't even know what's going on there. Like you're talking about all these DNC conspiracies and, you know, things that seem crazy to me over here. So I just felt really lost. And I think a lot of people feel this way, where you're just like,
Well, I think that's what
so
resonates people with YouTube, because people watch MSNBC or Fox and you know like this isn't right, and then I think that's why so many shows, well, people come to YouTube because they're just like, I know I'm being lied to over here. I just know it. And you just start to realize
right,
that like Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow are just professional wrestling characters that are just,
right,
she's just the diversity of the ruling class. That's all she is. She pushes the
right,
war machine narrative,
right.
and the ruling class can go, oh, see, women, gay women, but who push our corporate nonsense. I mean, she literally does segments that are sponsored by Boeing. And you can't
Right.
turn your face, you can't turn your brain off to that.
Right. Right.
Right. So what Graham is saying there, I mean, he makes a few good points about U.S. imperialism and the media, but also, people knowing that they're being lied to on cable news, turning to YouTube. That doesn't mean that YouTube is automatically correct or better politics or anything else. It can just be this regurgitated, recycled, populist ignorance, and that can degenerate rapidly and be manipulated easily by the capitalist class, again, to feed you back into some other portion of the narrative that you're just not hip to yet. And I think that is, we certainly saw that with Jimmy Dore falling for the Boogaloo Boys thing, if in fact he was falling for it and not cynically, calculating on that. But Kim is she, in the very next clip, starts talking about her starting the new business. And with all of what she just said as context, like admitting thoroughly, top to bottom, she had no fucking clue what her politics were, except that she wasn't far left. Jeez, no, that outrage machine. She's not far left. She might be a right-winger. We don't really know, but she's about to start a media company.
So yeah, after I started a business with a co-founder. We started a startup called The Left, and we went and got theleft.com. And we were trying to do a digital media, because I stopped doing shows. I was like, all right, I just need to go off the air for a while. I need to learn. Like, clearly I need to learn, and I don't even know where I belong right now. So
you need to learn, and you don't know where you belong politically, but you're going to go and buy theleft.com, which, of course, then no one else can have that domain. There might have been some good socialist project that wanted that name. We don't know. But you're frustrated. You don't even know what your politics are, but you're hell-bent on doing a political show because you sense there's a market there. You're passionate about politics, but you don't even know what your fucking politics are. And you're going to go buy theleft.com, even though you don't buy, quote, the left-wing narrative of outrage that you just said like 1 minute ago. So this is how it begins for Kim Iversen and the Kim Iversen show that we know.
We started The Left, and we wanted to start a newsletter and podcast. It took us forever. We didn't launch anything for a year. So there was like a year of research and downtime. And during that year, I was like, the challenge is that my partner and I definitely didn't agree on almost anything when it came to politics. But
so how do you get from this level of lack of integrity, disorganization, confusion to a channel with over 250,000 subs in like a short span of time, a couple of years? I'm not 100% positive, but I think that money probably played a large role. That and middle-of-the-road politics that doesn't actually threaten the capitalist class.
he was definitely a liberal. And he would say to me sometimes, like, I think you might be a right winger. I think you might be, like, I don't know, you say things, and as a progressive, we get accused of this a lot, right?
I don't know. I actually don't get accused of being a right winger very often. I think if you're a right wing social democrat or right wing populist, you might get accused of that. Now, we know that, liberals like to think of themselves as the left. I mean, left liberals, Democratic Party people, they like to think of themselves as left, which of course means dismissing everyone to their left, which is a lot of people. So we know that. But here you've got two people working on the left. I just need to relish the kind of irony and sickness of the situation. You got two people, one of whom, quote, might be a right-winger. The other one is, I guess, more of like a mainstream liberal, she's saying, if I have this right, it's a little vague, running a website called theleft.com, and they can't even agree with each other on basically anything. It's delicious.
People are always like saying we're on the alt-right or something crazy, or I don't even know. But
for the record, I've never once been accused of being in the alt-right. Just to put that out there.
That's when I realized, through this kind of 2 years of learning and just figuring and feeling like I don't know where I belong, that's when I realized on my own, I kind of stopped talking to my dad about politics because it was just, we would fight too much. And I started realizing that I was actually a total progressive. I just didn't know it.
So Graham is not asking a ton of questions here. So your dad was a hippie and a total progressive and super progressive liberal about everything, but you stopped talking to him because you're fighting with him over that. And then you come to the conclusion on your own that you are a, quote, total progressive. Well, then why were you fighting with your dad so much? That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I would ask a question there if I were Graham.
And I didn't know what a progressive really was. And then the more I started learning, I was like, oh my, I'm a progressive. And I started realizing that when I would come up with my own opinions and I would put it out there on Twitter or something, and then I would find out, oh, Jimmy Dore agreed, that was his take too. And oh, that was Kyle Kalinski's take. And it was like 95% of the time, always exactly the same take as what I had come up with in my own, in my own mind. And then I was like, okay, well, now I know I'm not a right winger. Thank God.
Yeah.
So again, on the timeline, just to clarify, first of all, the amount of shame on her face as she's talking about this, it's interesting. Again, money. How did she get such a big audience? It's amazing. It's amazing. Listen to her story. It's amazing. It's powerfully awful is what it is. So we've got the 2016 election, and she's like, okay, Dad, tinfoil hat, Bernie got cheated. Whoa. Then a couple of years went by. She does an entire year of downtime and research. So sounds like we're into like 2018 at this point, maybe late 2017, that it dawns on her that she is a progressive, in fact, and not a right-winger, as she had recently suspected. This person is who people get news from. It's kind of shocking.
I'm a progressive. Oh, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand fully. And then, so then I decided, I'm going to go for it. Then it was really scary. Even then, like once I realized, oh my God, I'm a progressive, then it was worse almost for me because I thought, shit, like now I'm never going to get him. I spent all my life in broadcasting, in corporate broadcasting. So like now what is going to happen to me? I mean, my agent's talking to me about maybe joining MSNBC. And, I've got all these like people wanting me to go into big mainstream media and opportunities to go into mainstream media. But now what? Like, they're never going to accept me, and I'm never going to be able to not lie. I'm not going to be able to lie. It won't be genuine coming out of my mouth, just the way I am.
Oh my God. Yeah. Real genuine. I'll give her this. I mean, the U.S. doesn't make it easy to understand politics, class dynamics, capitalism. I'll give her that much. It is hard. And, you know, in my life, I had to go way out of my way to do that. Fortunately for me, I did not have a, long career earlier in my life as like, this rock star interviewing thing that she did. And so I had time to actually devote, as a poor, I was able to devote time, all of my many hours of unemployment through my otherwise probably, more productive 20s. I was able to spend that time not interviewing rock stars or pretending to be a relationship counselor on the air for entertainment purposes. But instead, I spent that time getting involved in politics, trying to fight for my own survival, and raising my class consciousness in that way. And, I guess somebody needs to interview rock stars, maybe, possibly. But, should those people, not having a clue about politics, immediately try to transition into talking about politics? That's more of the question, and do they have the freedom to do that? We're not really debating that. Of course, they have the freedom to do that. But how did she go from this to having over 250,000 subscribers in such a short period of time? This is, again, the question, and we're going to get into this video after we get done with the Graham Elwood clip. We're going to see some of the fruits of this endeavor. We're going to examine some of the galaxy brain takes that are being shared with the audience in the last 6 months on the Kim Iversen show. Let's see if there's anything else in the Graham Elwood interview of note.
And it is really scary when you are like you and me, where this has been our careers. I mean, it's all I've known is corporate media. So, and I had a successful career in it, as you did. And it's just like, luckily, so my dad, the big progressive, right? So he was with me he's been with me these last 6 months. And, we had long conversations about this. My dad's a big progressive. So he, of course, morally, intellectually, this is the path he wanted me to go down. But also, he also has seen my entire career and what I would be walking away from. And even he was kind of like, I mean, that's a really, really tough thing because that's a big career to walk away from.
So now we play the world's smallest violin for, corporate media liars walking away from the big money. I mean, shut the fuck up and go take a job as a dishwasher like everybody else, Honestly. For those of us who didn't have big corporate media jobs, do you think that this resonates? I had opportunities in my life to become a corporate servant. I turned them down. There was a job I took through a temp agency. I walked out at lunch. I mean, for some of us, it's a little bit clearer earlier on, and we're not as dazzled by the money. And I have to ask also, with all this background in corporate media, is she really breaking from it, or is she just trying to reproduce that same basic system on an independent basis, working for herself? Because I kind of suspect that that's what's going on.
And, guaranteed money and in some cases, a lot of money. But finally, it was in January, which is when I launched the show. And my startup that I had done with my partner was like not going well, mainly because we'd kind of come to a point where we're like, okay, we're going to try to, because him and I realized we didn't agree politically very much. So we were like, we're just going to have to try to appease everybody somehow, like the mainstream and the progressives. We're going to have to try to like create a narrative. So that's why we called it the left. And we were like,
so really neither of those things is the left. So still not a great title. Liberals aren't left. Social Democrats are kind of in the center. You could maybe say they're on the right wing of the very broad left, but from someone on the actual left, thanks not really for we once again co-opting that term. And again, so we're already past the point in her story where she's had the epiphany and she's gravitated over to the correct politics, and she's still like, how do we sell out? How do we make the money? I mean, it's like, it makes your whole story of the political conversion and realization less compelling in my eyes when you've already passed that chapter and you're still going back to appeasing the mainstream, i.e., you know, the DNC, corporate Democrats, all this stuff. Like, I think she just really shot herself in the foot here, but I think that that's who she is. Also, I'm not personally sensing a ton of intelligence out of what she's saying, because she is really telling on herself right now. She's really, I don't know why she is saying what she's saying, because I think she's destroying her own credibility. Then again, I don't watch her show because I don't think she had that much credibility. Maybe her audience just, I don't know, you know, according to their standards, this is all fine.
Trying to just be the left, but you know, when you go down that road, you can't. You're kind of bound to fail, because you can't. I mean, who cares, right? You're not playing to one side. If the one side wants to be all about social justice stuff, outrage all the time, and then progressives, like, we're outraged about something totally different. So
I don't know if it's just me. I have no idea what she just said. That, well, this side's like outraged, and then this side is also outraged, but it's about different things. Like, you know what I mean? No, I really don't know what you mean. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
So I guess there's some that are both, but yeah, when I realized, okay, my startup's not going to go any further. And I was in talks with radio again to potentially go back into mainstream radio. And even a couple of the biggest, the presidents of the biggest radio companies, they were reaching out to me saying, you want to come back? You know, you've been gone for 2 years. And honestly, I took a few days of silence and thinking and being scared about where my future would lead. And I said, I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to trust my gut. And my gut is telling me that I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm not going to hide. And this means I'm going to give up a lot, but maybe everything. But and that's scary. You know, and I just went for it. I just said, this is it. I'm just going to do it. I've got to do what I think is right. At the end of the day, if I die broke, but I die at least knowing that I spoke the truth and that I did what was right, like, that's the way to live your life,
So part 2 is what Kim is doing now, having given up all the money, which, first of all, she has 270,000 subscribers. I think you can make a decent living off of that, to be honest. Very comfortable living, in fact. Is it actually the truth? What her, 6 months of intense political study or whatever the fuck it was, has that really led her to the core truth? Is she really putting out the liberating, hard-hitting, pro-working class message that, is just really going to nourish the soul of the proletariat? Or is it another bullshit con? Let's take a look at these spicy gems from the Kim Iversen show.
Mike Pompeo has come out officially accusing China of committing genocide. He issued a statement today basically labeling China as committing atrocities, saying that they are committing genocide against the Uyghur Muslims. Now, this is a really hot button issue, and I actually did an entire video on what is going on in that area and understanding how China deals with it. And you have to remember that China is a dictatorship, right? So, I would say an authoritative country. They do not have a democracy. And so they, of course, in regard to how a democracy works versus how their system works, I would argue that they're committing a lot of human rights abuses when you think about the fact that their people don't really have any options when it comes to politics as much. They have one party. And there's a lot of things that go, they don't have any real rights. The government can censor anything. The government can confiscate anything. The government can take their businesses. The government can shut down their entire lives. So there's a lot that goes on in a society like that that is not based on democracy. But I did an entire segment on the Uyghurs, and you can go and watch that, and I break it all down for you on what is going on over there in those camps. They are, there are people that are going into these re-education camps. My grandfather in Vietnam went to a re-education camp for 4 years and eventually got out of that re-education camp. And it's kind of so it's a thing that's sometimes done over there, but I go into great detail on that. But I want to let's go ahead and hear Mike Pompeo talk more about this. There's actually a clip. He was on Fox News, and I want you to hear him talking about this specifically, because this is going to be really important for the thing that the big worry I have for our future going forward. And Mike Pompeo, let's start with this clip of him being interviewed today about him labeling China as a nation committing genocide. Here's the clip.
This is forced labor. This is forced sterilizations, forced abortions. John, the kind of things that we haven't seen in an awfully long time in this world. And we now have conducted an exhaustive review of the facts and made the determination that, in fact, the Chinese Communist Party has committed these crimes against humanity, is continuing to try and deny these people, not just the Uyghur Muslims, but other faiths as well, the simple capacity to continue to exist and to create an ethnic set of activities that we haven't seen in an awfully long time. I've referred to this over time as the stain of the century. It is truly that. And today's actions is simply a continuation of the work this administration has done to try and convince the Chinese Communist Party to cease this terrible, terrible set of human rights violations that have been taking place.
Okay, so obviously, this is just an attempt to demonize China. Now, whether or not, set aside your own, because I know that's a hot button issue with the Uyghurs going on in China. I understand that that's a hot button issue. But what I want you to do for a minute is try to set those feelings aside and let's think bigger picture. Let's look at the bigger picture on this and what this actually means for the future of our country. And who really is going to end up marching in communism, because I do believe that there is a risk of that. And that might sound far-fetched to you, but I'm going to explain exactly how this country could collapse into an authoritative sort of communist state.
This person has no idea what she is talking about. I mean, I could break it down for you. I don't know that viewers of this channel are really going to need much help with that. I mean, she's anti-communist, for starters. She doesn't know what communism is, for point two. She is... Anyway, my head just blew up. We're going to let that clip basically speak for itself and just move on to one more clip. Honestly, having watched a bunch of these, I don't feel like they are even high quality enough. Like, there's so much filler in her videos, it's kind of even hard to break down quickly. So let's just go to one more video and then we'll wrap it up.
And this is my beef with the People's Party. This is why I don't support the People's Party just yet. And it's because I don't see them bringing in those Trump supporters. I don't see them bringing in the populist right. I hear them say, you can join us if you convert to our way of thinking and our religion, essentially.
No. First of all, I don't support the movement for the People's Party because they, in my opinion, are too accommodating to the right. For Kim Iversen, they're not accommodating enough. They're saying the movement for the People's Party has some kind of left-wing orientation and some kind of standards. They will not take just completely uncleansed reactionaries and racists. She specifically said, Trump people. Have you seen a Donald Trump rally? Have you seen the things that go on there? Have you seen the kinds of people it attracts? Her problem, Kim's problem with the movement for the People's Party, is they will not just absorb those people without any kind of, political standards being applied, which she's mockingly called like a religion. Do you understand how a political party works? Let's continue.
And if you convert to our way of thinking, then you're welcome in. But if you don't agree with us on all of these points, then you cannot be a part of this movement. To me, the People's Party, the problem with it is it's going to essentially at best become a new green party. It'll be a replacement for the Green Party, which it will push the Democratic Party to the left. It will attract only hardcore progressive Democrats, but not progressives, independent progressives like myself, and not Republican progressives, which I see a rising of these Republican progressives.
This person is not smart. I don't know what else to say. Republican progressives? What the fuck are you talking about? This person has 250,000, actually it was like at 275,000, I think, subscribers. How do you say things like there are Republican progressives and not immediately lose all of your subscribers? This is shit tier populism. She just called herself an independent progressive. What? She doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about on this or basically any other issue. This concludes my profile of Kim Iversen. I'm kind of speechless. I don't even know what else there is to say. These clips speak for themselves. This is garbage. This is utter trash. But she has a lot of subs. Ask yourself sincerely, how does that happen? We're going to close this video out before we get to the credits with a little gem from the Graham Elwood interview. I almost called him Graham Iverson. The Graham Elwood interview in which Kim reasons through, on air, live on air, reasons through a little bit of why the capitalist media complex is not good.
Right. I mean, it's still part of me hopes that mainstream media will change. Like I'm still like, well, maybe they'll change. There's still hope. Maybe in 5-10 years they'll go progressive. Who knows? Like, and then maybe I can go and get a job when these guys decide. I don't know, when these guys decide that they want to like change their tune and actually do what the American people want. Like actually be, actually give news that people want rather than parroting what, but that would be really difficult because they do have advertisers.
And that's the video. Thanks to our current patrons whose names are on the screen. If you'd like to get your name on the screen or just support us financially, you can go to patreon.com/socialism4all and sign up for a monthly donation. You can also follow us at facebook.com/socialism4all. Used to have a page at FOR all, and it got throttled to death by Zuck. Here on YouTube, please click the like button, subscribe button, and the notifications bell. Please leave a comment if you can, and please share our video wherever you're online, your Twitter feed, your Discord servers, Reddit subs, etc. All of that helps more people to see this content, whether it's in the YouTube algorithm or just posting it on other sites. All of that's helpful. All of you out there supporting and promoting this content makes it all go that much more smoothly. We need to end capitalism, normalize talking about socialism today, and it's really kind of our only hope for a better tomorrow. Thanks for all you do, and we will catch you in the next video.